So sadly our tale of the Honda Spada is going to be drawn to a premature close. On the 16th of July 2021, a gentleman failed to give way to a vehicle already in a roundabout. That would be me on the Spada, and as a result the Spada is now a statutory write-off, never to be registered. I fared a little bit better than the Spada. I got a fractured rib and a hematoma and a few other goodies there, this is maybe 3 weeks now after the fact, and I'm just starting to come good and becoming mobile. So my apologies to people corresponding with me as well. It's really hard, when your leg is blown up like a balloon and you can't bend at the knee to get around. It is a sad ending to our Spada project, but I suppose as we go through life, we can't really appreciate the good times unless there's some bad ones as well. And I guess this is not one of the best moments for our organisation, and certainly for our Spada. The Spada, you may have noticed, is actually quite messed up. The frame's still straight, and despite the fact that it was over-insured, heavily over-insured, it still got deemed as a write-off. I tried to negotiate to keep the wreck because realistically what you're looking at here is quite a fun project. But the insurance company was quite determined that it was going to be a statutory write-off, never to be registered. So I'm just taking the number plate off now, and then a tow truck will show up over the next couple of days and take it away. And that'll be pretty much the end of our Spada videos in the short term. If I run across another Spada, I'll certainly consider purchasing it. But what our channel really lacks is a bigger bike. I mean, it's great doing the 125s. I mean, the Honda CB is such a popular bike. It's incredible. The MC19, well, everybody loved them in their time, and people still love them now, especially the ones who respect what they actually are, and compare them to a modern bike. The Spada was a great project. It would be a good project, apart from the damage to the rear wheel here. All the levers are bent and broken, and we're going to need a new clutch cylinder and a few other items as well. The real kicker with this one is that while the bike was on the ground on its side, the motor was still running. This does happen, so it's effectively spat a big end bearing as well. So the engine is pull out and strip down. I would have thought this would be a great project, but the fact that the engine is not a runner, that's a two-edged sword, because I mean we get to pull apart an engine, which we always enjoy. But the other side of the coin is that engine repairs are expensive, particularly for these. And I guess that the two things that really sealed the deal were, first of all, the fact that it's a statutory write-off, never to be registered, and secondly, the insurance company still wanted $500 for the wreck. And somebody will watch this video in 30 years and go, wow, $500, bargain. What good is it if you can't enjoy it? And it sort of gets you into some really grey areas there. Like, I notice a lot of I did look at eBay, and I did a search with the PPSR report on frame numbers that were for sale. You know, you can do a search to see if it's a write-off, and a surprising proportion of frames for sale on eBay were write-offs. So you could spend, I guess with this thing, it would have been about $3,000 or $4,000 to get it right up to scratch, maybe $5,000. Imagine having spent $5,000 and logged up at your local registration authority and basically being told, no, you can't register this ever. And that was the kicker. That and the cost of the wreck. Salvaging this stuff and putting it onto another frame, as you've gathered, I looked at. If I could get a legitimate frame, there's still a large proportion of this stuff that is not happy. It sort of adds up. The thing is that when you strip a bike down to the frame, and I've done this before, you always end up with a repair bill that's at least 50% bigger than you first started out, because there's always something that requires replacement as you go through a frame, down to the frame type rebuild. I've seen people buy motorbikes, what we call basket cases, where whole bikes basically are in milk crates and boxes, and so you can see why they call it a basket case. The thing is that when you strip a bike down to that level, you start looking at things like steering head bearings, for example. Are you going to put used steering head bearings back into the bike? You're not, are you? What about swing arm bearings? They're just two examples off the top of the head. Then there's fasteners, and you always find other faults as well. So the list always blows out. So it's a sad moment, but this is basically the end of our Spada. We did have a bit of fun with it. In fact, this was one of the bikes that spent more time being ridden than actually being dismantled. The only bike that has more mileage on it every year than this one was getting was the CB125E. Everything else sort of got shoved to one side. But once the MC19 is on the road, we'll start looking at a replacement for the Spada. We're actually thinking possibly a bigger machine, a 750 or a 1000, something that's just on the turn, turning into a classic bike as we speak. This is the best time to buy a soon-to-be classic, is when it's not quite a classic, not quite eligible for the Club Rego. Generally speaking, when they're under the 30 years of age, parts are not so difficult to get. And you then have a window of opportunity to do a really good restoration at a reasonable cost. Once parts dry up, then it becomes really, really interesting. So folks, it's really sad to say, but this is goodbye to our Spada. And hopefully something different, something new and just as interesting will be on the horizon. And of course, if we have an opportunity for another Spada, we certainly will fill the hole that was left by the death of this one.